Mr. Chairman.
When I traveled, during the pandemic, we all travel several times a week. There were many flight attendants who were very nice, very pleasant, very sympathetic, and were just like me, unhappy with the mandates and really didn't want to go overboard. They would pass me notes, sometimes secretly, saying they were supportive. They didn't want anybody to know. They might be supportive of things I was for. But it also brought out the inner Karen in people who just, and everybody knows this exists in a significant number of people in our society, the idea that given a little power, they really like it. And gosh, I never was a policeman, but I wish I were. And just the idea of just, all of this power, I have power over, and if you say a word to me, you can be put on the list. In fact, I have a TSA document, some here in my collection of documents, that says that disobeying a public health order is equivalent to, saying I'm going to take the plane down. I mean, you are a threat to the plane. You have now become a threat to the flight attendant. And that just brought out the inner Karen in a lot of people, and it became really unpleasant. I hated to fly every week. And I'm not somebody who's really that confrontational. I don't like, that's why I don't like it. I don't like to have the confrontation. But, you would have, sir, you're not eating your peanuts fast enough. You need to put your mask on in between each peanut. I mean, literally, that was happening on flights. And the ludicrous nature of, there being any science related to that all of us with our mask off for 20 minutes while we're eating is somehow going to protect us from, having it on for 40 minutes when we have it off 20 minutes. And it turns out that none of these things had any science behind them, none whatsoever. And most of the masks they were recommending were masks that were ineffective. Cloth masks were entirely for show and completely ineffective. And yet the head of the NIH was wandering around with the Washington Nationals cloth mask on as if it were of any value. But I think it's important to know how we got here. So Quiet Skies, you're right, Mr. Levitt. We've gotten rid of Quiet Skies, but I'm not sure that helps Mr. Crowder or Christine. We're still not sure exactly how they got on the list. My suspicion is if she just shows up on the list, I'm wondering if somebody who doesn't like you saw her social media that she was in Washington on January 6th, didn't like your politics, and says, I'm going to call the tip line. And then what recourse, and you'd have never known about it until everybody started, harassing her. But you, to this day, don't know how she got on the list, right?
That's correct, sir.
So that's a real problem. So what we're taking is, let's say I'm of a different political persuasion. I may not know your wife, but I work with you, and I heard you say something about your politics, and I'm of a different political bent. Why don't I just call in the tip line and say, because I heard you say she was there at January 6th, but she was at the Capitol, at the White House, not the Capitol. Not as if it really is a huge distinction, but there is a distinction. And so maybe just out of spite somebody does it. Don't we have to have a way to fix where someone doesn't like you and put you on the list? Or maybe somebody has an animus towards Arab Americans and just makes this list. So I don't think we're nearly done with trying to fix this problem yet. There's also this silent program, silent partner program, where one of them was if you're traveling from Greece and you don't have a Greek name and you've been to Turkey or you've been to Syria sometime in the last 10 years. Well, what if that trip to Syria was because you were part of the armed services? Is there not somebody with a brain that's actually looking up and saying you were in the armed services, you were there, or have a relative there, frankly, then have a good reason to have gone there? But I don't think anybody's taking the time to do it because there's just so many damn people to put on these lists, and then it's so hard. But half the time you don't even know if you've been named. I mean, you were fortunate. You were in a unique position, and I thank you for coming forward because you were in a unique position that you knew that happened. This had to have happened to dozens, if not hundreds, of other people. With regard to secrecy, Mr. Harper mentioned this. I want to reiterate how much of a problem this is. We cannot analyze whether programs work because they simply say it's secret and you don't deserve to know. I've been asking, as the chairman of this committee, a couple of simple questions. Like I say, I travel all the time, so I get the good and the bad, and a lot of it's the bad of travel. I get stopped once every 2 to 3 weeks, and I don't think I'm being selected, but I get selected by the machine for random pat-downs. I've been through the magnetometer. if I've made it through that and I don't have any metal on me, I want to know, now that I've been selected and I go through the advanced pat down and the whirligig machine, how many weapons and knives are you finding? Well, they sent me some long answer, but they didn't answer the question. I want to know how many. I think it's 0. Because I've already been through the magnet. I don't have a knife or a gun. What are they finding when I go through? The other thing is, when you go through the I call it the whirligig machine, you go through there, it always finds something that needs to be patted down. So I get a pat down too. But it never finds anything. So it must not be a very good machine if I get patted down every time and there's never anything there. I suspect that that machine is actually targeting, not on me personally, but doing a random check to do a pat down on me by indicating that something there that's not there. They won't admit they're doing that, but I suspect they are doing that. But it all goes back to secrecy. They don't want to reveal the state secrets, even to the people who are supposed to be overseeing the state secrets. To give you an example of how bad it is, this isn't just this area. I've been wanting to read the Church Committee report from 1976. All right, it'll be 50 years next year, and it'll be released to the public, but I'm not allowed to read it. And some of my colleagues are preventing me. On the Intelligence Committee, they jealously protect this information, and typically the people on that committee, with few exceptions, are in favor of more intelligence power and opposed to more scrutiny. There's supposedly a classified annex. I want to read it, and I'm being prevented from reading it. They've told me now I can individually read it, and it's a box, it's a room full of boxes. And they won't designate exactly what's what, and there's no index, but I can go read it. I can't read the whole entire, I need a whole staff. I'd like historians and other people interested in the Church Committee. But the Church Committee was critical of too much power to the intelligence agencies. Now I want to read something, and I'm being stymied 50 years later. So secrecy is a problem. To Mr. Ayub, the whole idea of accountability, of course we need to find these things out. Most of the programs in government, it just doesn't go to this, most programs in government that are authorized for a purpose are never reviewed. We have legislation that says if it doesn't get reauthorized, it goes out of existence. It should disappear. Reauthorization, I know Senator Langford's been very active in this, reauthorization should be about, does it work? We have like 82 housing programs. Everybody gets this idea, I want to help the homeless. Well, we've already done it 82 times. Why didn't study the other 82 programs to find out if any of them work before we reauthorize a new program? With regard to where we go from here, we're not done with this. I'm still appalled by the idea of outsourcing this to universities. So we pay the universities. Universities have no scruples whatsoever. So George Washington University here in DC has a project on extremism. Is extremism showing up on January 6th to support President Trump? I mean, really, we have to be a little careful of who we're giving the keys to this. And I think they did go after those people. The evidence is that the people on the mask list, there's a terror mask list apparently. So the people on the terror watch list for not wanting to wear masks, I don't think they were removing their mask. I think they were talking about it online. Let's don't wear our masks. Let's take our masks off on the plane and have civil disobedience. But we're still trying to get to the bottom of that because we don't actually have the names of the people on the list. That's all being hidden. I suspect there are also hundreds of other people that were put on a list because they were resistant to a dictate from someone on a plane, to a flight attendant saying, wear your mask higher, you're showing a nostril and you should need to, hike up your mask a little higher. I think a lot of those people were put down as, potential disasters for the plane, dangerous people, and not necessarily for masks because they didn't want to list them all as masks. But we've got to do more. Every one of these programs has to be looked. You have to have recourse. You have to have redress. And I think that we can't just stop here. We have to look out throughout government, more transparency, more sunlight. I'm going to throw it back to Senator Moreno. I think has another couple questions.
Yeah. Mr. Matt Taibbi, you've been